In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to manipulate and visualize univariate time series. We will work with photovoltaic solar energy generation data on an hourly basis. We'll produce columns for the year, month, and hour, and set up this heat map to see during which hours we generate more energy from the sun. Before creating this heat map, you need to learn several things about the Pandas data frame to work with it comfortably. Therefore, we will load the data. We'll make a plot so you can see how the data is visualized. We'll also see how to perform resampling. Instead of having data for every hour, we'll see if we can group it by week, month, etc. Subsequently, we will move on to pivot tables, which, from this data frame, will require us to create temporal columns and group data in rows for each hour and in columns for each of the months according to the year. Well, without further delay, let's get to it. To load the photovoltaic solar generation data, we need to go to the course folder, and in the data folder, we will find energy generation hourly data for the year. Therefore, let's import the Pandas library. Next, as the file is in CSV format, we need to use the function to load a CSV, which in this case is read CSV. Now it asks for the file in this parameter, and we pass it from the tab, the file named energy. However, it does not appear here because it is a few folders back from where the file is located. So, I'll tell it to go back and then search within the folders. Do I have here energy generation? Not yet. I'll go back another folder. And now I find data. And I tell it now energy generation hourly for the year, execute. And here we have the data frame for generation, where each row represents an hour and each column the generation from each of the technologies. To work with this data frame, we will use the variable df generation. And now every time we reference it, we have the data. Since we are only going to work with a single time series, with a single generation, the photovoltaic solar, we will access it with brackets and tell it photovoltaic solar. Execute, and here we have it. However, there's a problem because on the left, the index associated with each generation does not present the temporal information. For this, we need to modify the function that loads the file. And we need to add a new parameter that will make the index. That is, the leftmost part of the table, the name of each row, I want it to be the first column. So I set it here to 0, execute, and now we have the date associated with the index. Now let's execute below and see how the temporal information is maintained. As in this lesson, I will only work with this time series. I'm going to save it in a variable and we'll call it sSolar, S for series, which is the object we're working with here. Execute, and now every time I call sSolar, I have it here. We have 8759 hours. How could we visualize it to see the temporal evolution? We can simply make a plot using the plot function. Execute. And here we have the historical evolution. However, notice here on the x-axis that the dates are grouped in a very cluttered manner. Instead, in the result, they are correctly located. Why does this happen? If we look at sSolar, the left part, the date is the index and it tells us that this type of object is an object. It is not indicating that it is a temporal object. How do we solve this? We could, when loading the table, tell it parse dates equals true. And now, when I reference the index, it will tell me that the object type is now temporal. Therefore, when I execute again, we will see how on the x-axis the dates are correctly formatted. I'm going to show you another trick in case this happens in the future with another column instead of doing it through the parse each dates parameter of the function. What we are going to do is access from the df generation data frame the index. And precisely when it tells us it is an object, we're going to go to the Pandas library. Look for the toDatetime function and convert the index to a temporal object type, as we see here, and to make the change permanent. Because if I now call this code again, it still tells me object. I would have to overwrite the value here, and now we have the datetime, and everything will work just as well. So that the lessons are not so long, that you grasp the concepts just at the moment we present them, and with the importance they duly have. Therefore, in the next tutorial, you will learn to work with the resample function so that instead of seeing all the dates here very close together because they are hourly, we are going to aggregate the data for each of the days, for example, and make the variations clearer.